Hello and welcome to episode 14 of the Under Eagle Mountain Making Podcast. Hello, welcome or welcome back. For those of you that might not have been here before, my name's Laura. I'm a maker living in the northwest of England. On this YouTube channel, I discuss all my sorts of creative endeavours, and that includes knitting and sewing and naturally dyeing, sometimes a bit of pottery. I have an Instagram account which is at under.eagle.mountain, and on there I show more and talk more about all of the things that you might see here. And also there's some other snippets of life like baking and gardening and crafts that I do with my children maybe. So yeah, I hope that amongst all of that you find something that you enjoy and that I can keep you company for a little while. I don't think it'll be a particularly long one this time. I haven't got too much to show. December's busy, isn't it? I've had a family party and the kids are busy with school things, you know, plays and stuff. I've been a bit poorly this last week. My voice still sounds a little bit funny, but I feel all right. She says, coughing. I do feel all right. I just have this sort of tickly cough, which is kind of interrupting my sleep, to be honest. As soon as I sort of go past 45 degrees, I just cough and cough and cough. So I'm kind of trying to sleep propped up on pillows. But anyhow, we'll get there. I hope you're all right. I hope you're managing to stay away from all the seasonal ills that are going around. So yeah, I haven't got too much to show, but I did want to get one in before Christmas, before the end of the year, just to sort of round up a few things. So the first finished object I've got is my Louvre Sweater. I showed that as a work in progress last time. It's a pattern by Petite Knit. I don't do a lot of Petite Knit patterns. I think I've knitted one before. I knitted the teddy bear sweater for my little boy for his 3rd birthday. He's not that far off his 6th birthday and he is still wearing it. It's kind of stretched. It was like alpaca and something else, and it has kind of stretched out, but it's kind of grown with him, and it's still really sweet and he loves it. So I'm really pleased that it's lasted so long. I think she has brilliant patterns. I enjoyed knitting both of them. I find them kind of easy to follow. I think maybe if you were brand new to knitting, she would not be the best designer to go to because she kind of assumes quite a lot of knowledge. There are steps that other designers might include that she doesn't. But if you've got some knitting experience, I think you'll be fine. I certainly I'm not the world's best knitter, but I'm okay following her patterns. And I think she does some really beautiful patterns. I think a lot of those patterns are quite similar. I think she's not the only designer, she's one of many designers that has like a design and then it's re-released separately in a slightly lighter weight yarn or a slightly heavier weight yarn, or maybe with the addition of mohair. There'll be an adult's one, there'll be a child's one, and sometimes they've got like, it'll be X sweater and X sweater light or X sweater chunky, or sometimes it has like a totally different name, but it is pretty much the same sweater. You know, it might have a slightly different type of ribbon, or it might be a slightly different gauge, but it kind of looks exactly the same. You know, maybe one's plain and maybe one's stripy or something. And I don't know, I feel that's slightly cynical. I think, you know, when you compare that to somebody like Rebecca Clow at the Crea Bayer, who it really wants to kind of make her patterns feel worthwhile, you know, for them to really be valuable to the person that buys it, to be worth the money. And they're not expensive. I think her patterns are like £7, which is, you know, when you think of all the work and the time and the effort and the expense that goes into creating a pattern, because I don't just mean the material cost, you know, she pays for tech editors and so on and so forth, the photographer for the pictures. I don't think it's not just somebody sits down and thinks something and knits it and then says, oh, there you go. There's a lot to it. So I can understand why people want as much financial compensation for their work, and I think they deserve it. But I think producing two pretty similar designs and calling them different things and selling them separately, it's I don't know, something about it doesn't sit right. Anyway, I've gone on a rant. I'll show you the sweater. I'm really pleased with it. Having said all of that, I'm really pleased with it, and I'm not saying that I wouldn't knit another Petite Knit sweater again. I would. I'm going to hold it up. I haven't got any pictures of me wearing it because I've literally just picked it up off the floor where it's been drying for the past sort of day and a half. It is mostly dry. I think it's a tiny weeny bit damp at the cuffs, actually, just at the end of the arms. So I'll probably stick it back down on the floor to finish drying after that, but I'll get a photograph, and if I do it before I edit this, I'll include it. If not, I'll show it next time. Maybe I'll wear it next time. Always hard to show a big old sweater. It is quite a big sweater. The colour's not, that's a better representation of the colour. Every time I've tried to take a photo of this, or when I've shown the yarn or the project on here previous times, it gets really washed out. Like if I bring it close to you, it looks really pale, but actually it's that is the colour, that sort of gold and brown. And then you can see it's got all these flecks. It's got yellow and green and bright orange, and some that even look sort of pinky. So I dyed this yarn myself. If you haven't seen a previous podcast, I dyed it myself. Initially I dyed the yarn with birch bark and it came out a lovely pale pink colour, but I think it was very close to my skin tone and I don't think would have looked particularly nice you know, on me. So then I over dyed it with onion skins, but it went a bit too yellow. So then I bundle dyed it with coreopsis flowers, marigold flowers and red onion skins, which has given those specks of colour. But then I bundled it up and cable tied it together and I put it in an exhaust bath of avocado. I dyed some sock wool with some avocado stones and I just dunked this into the exhaust bath of that, and it just knocked back the sort of yellowiness. And when knitting it, you can actually see there's like a tonal variation in that background colour. Sometimes it looks really yellow, sometimes it looks a bit brown, and sometimes it just does have like a slight like rose gold tint, which I'm really pleased about. I think on the whole the speckles have come out really even. There is just an ever so slight empty gap here. I mean, it's really slight. I think, you know, I've spent loads of time looking at it. The other side is, I think, more even. Of course, that's the back. But I'm not sure really that anybody else would notice that. I think that's me staring at it for hour after hour. So it has this big, it's a funnel neck. It does sit right up, high up my neck. This wool is quite soft. It's the undyed base was from Laxton's. It was Laxton's wool trace, and the label, which is a range that they do where you can, has a QR code on it, tells you exactly where the yarn came from, so it's really traceable. And it's spun in a mill not far from here, an hour or so from here, so it's really nice to, I mean, they're a big international company, loads and loads of yarn dyers buy from them, but it's nice for me that it's so local. And on the label it said Romney, so it's 100% Romney fibre. I did make some changes to the pattern. This is a size 3. I think I said either last time or the time before, I often fall between the size 2 and the size 3, and I kind of, I don't know, sometimes I think I don't want it to look too big, you know. And in fact, I watched On It If I Want To with Andrea Mowry. And I think it was either this week just gone, like last week or the week before, somebody had said, you know, I fall between sizes and I can kind of have some inches too few positive E's, or like some inches too many positive E's, and like, you know, what would you recommend? And you know, she said all about personal preference and measuring a jumper that you really love and things like that, but she said that she would herself probably come down on knitting the smaller size, because with blocking and so on and so forth, you might get that extra bit of ease anyway. And I often do that. I go down to the size 2, partly because I'm slightly worried about these looking like swamping me, because I'm not massive, I'm about 5'3". And, you know, I've got quite short arms, and yeah, relative to sort of an average sizing thing. And also that jump between size 2 and 3 often requires like an extra skein of yarn. And I was thinking, well, you know, but anyway, this time I decided I've got the yarn, I'm going to do the size 3 because it's meant to be oversized. So I did, and I'm glad I did, but the sleeves were going to be way too long. So there had to be 8 sets of decreases, like, you know, knit so many rounds, decrease, knit so many rounds, decrease, and I was meant to do that times 8. By the time I'd done my 7th, the sleeve was just like a tiny bit longer than when it said to stop and do the ribbon. So I was 2 decreases short, but I decided that I wasn't, like, maybe I should have figured it out beforehand and like reduce the number of rows in between the decreases. But for the sake of 2 stitches on what is already a baggy sleeve, I decided that I wasn't worried, I wasn't going to rip it back and do it. And similarly, it was meant to have, I think, 5.5 inches of ribbon at the wrist, at the cuff, but that would take it to about here. It's already, it comes to sort of here, which again is fine because it's going to be oversized, but it would have like hidden the whole palm of my hand. So I think I did about 3.5, 4 inches, but it's still good. And similarly with the body, I think the back measurement was meant to be like knocking on for 20 inches, and I think I stopped a couple of inches before that. And I think the ribbon at the bottom is more or less what it was meant to be. Basically, that's all the yarn that I had left from the 3 skeins that I'd used for the bodies. I'd dyed the skeins for the skeins, I gotta say it differently. I'd dyed the skeins for the arms slightly different. I'd put more space in between the bits of material that when I'd bundle dyed it, so that those specks came around less often, because I knew I'd be knitting in a smaller circumference, and that seems to have worked. I don't know if that's worked because I was right to do that, or whether it was happenstance, but the distribution of spots in the body and the arms seems to have worked out, so I'm really pleased with that. And each arm took about 60 grams out of the 100 grams, so that's about 40 grams left, and I had 2 of those left. But then that meant I had 300 grams for the body, and that tail from that I need to weave in still, that's all I had left. So I was quite pleased that I'd gauged it correctly. I could, of course, use this for the ribbon. I don't think you would have noticed there was a smaller distribution of the flex in the ribbon. So I could have gone longer, but actually it's about as long as I would want it to be. I've got some crop jumpers. This is quite a crop jumper. I've not said what this is. This is the Offering of Trees by Melody Hoffman, or Bee Mandarin's sweater. And do you know what? I was going to stand up and show, but I think I'll probably just take a photo and stick it in, or a video and stick it in afterwards. It's knit in 3 strands of Plurtalope in the colour Dark Woods, and I really liked, like, I was really drawn to the mixture of the name of the pattern, Offering of Trees, and the Dark Woods colourway together. I felt they were like really a good match, and I love wearing it. It's very cosy, it's very warm, but it is quite cropped. So with YouTube's favourite high-waisted pants and skirts or over a dress, it looks really good. But I wanted this one to be longer. I've got my green Felix, which I thought I wore last time, again is quite cropped, but the red Wilder jumper that I wear quite a lot is the same length as this, like it's more or less the same length. And again, that looks nice with like my bobs and with excuse me, other things with skirts and stuff. So I decided I didn't want it any longer than that. So I think it all worked out well. So I think they're the only modifications that I made. I was right with gauge and everything. Just slightly shorter sleeves, slightly shorter body to accommodate the fact that I am a slightly shorter person. I think it hits me in a very similar place as it hits, I'm going to say Petite Knit, I think her name's Matta, or Matta, I think, as it hits her, but I think she must be taller than me. Right, I think I was a bit waffly about that, but yeah, it's finished and I'm really pleased with it. And I'm just going to skip forward into dreams and plans type area, because I want to make a pair of bob pants. I've got a pair of bob pants on at the minute. I've got those ones I made in Maine cotton in the summer. Maine linen. Maine is in the place, M-A-I-N-E, linen. They had it on sale at Merchant and Mills, and I loved it. I bought quite a bit, bought 4 meters and made a dress and made these pants. And I've got another pair of bob pants that I made in a green and white gingham cotton, and I wear them all the time, like almost all the time. If I have to put a pair of trousers on, I think, should I put a pair of trousers with a waistband? And you know, you get that sort of firm, like rigid waistband around your waist. Or should I just wear my pull-on bob pants? I think even other trousers that I've got that I've made with elasticated waistbands, these are still my favourite. I love them. So I think I might just make more bob pants and wear bob pants forevermore. And I have this, it's a cotton, it's a candy cotton, again from Merchant and Mills. It's this sort of really bright orange, one way weaved with a black, I don't know which is the warp and which is the weft. One goes one way, one goes, and you get this sort of rusty colour. It looks a little bit brighter on there actually than it does in real life. It looks a bit browner, but you can see it's got these flecks of blue and red in there and white, and I think they'll make quite a jazzy pair of trousers, and I think along with my sweater it'd be quite a jazzy speckly outfit. But I can live with that. So if I can get these made this week, I think this will be my Christmas outfit, my new jumper and my bob trousers. Maybe not as sort of sparkly and posh as some people's ideal Christmas outfits, but comfy and warm and cute in my opinion. So yeah, I'm hoping to get those done this week. I've got no chance next weekend. I've got a day out on the Saturday with my mum and my daughter, and I'm seeing my best friend, and then Sunday is my husband's birthday. So yeah, that'll be, you know, dedicated to doing something nice with him. But I'm not actually getting much done. If you follow me on Instagram, I said that I somehow landed a whole day by myself on Saturday. My mum had the little two for the weekend. My son like has a club on every other Saturday morning, and my daughter is doing volunteering as part of her Duke of Edinburgh award scheme, and then she was meeting a friend, and then they were going out and she was sleeping over at a friend's house, and my husband was out. It was like his work's Christmas do, so I literally had all day to myself and had this big long list of things that I wanted to do and that I wanted to make. And then when my mum arrived to pick up the boys, she said, "Oh, I've read these books, and I think you'd like them." And I started reading the book on the Saturday night, and that was it. Honestly, I've done virtually nothing else. Every few minutes I think, "Oh, you've just unloaded the dishwasher, you can read a chapter. Oh, you've just you know, put a load of washing on, why don't you read a chapter?" Or, "Oh, I'm just gonna make a cup of tea, oh, I'll just read a chapter while I do it." And like, I've just been totally sucked in. I've nearly finished. For anybody that's interested, I know a lot of people don't read, but it's a Sarah J Maas book. I know she wrote the Court of Thorns. I haven't read that series at all, although I think my mum might be buying that next, so I'm sure that it'll come my way. It's a series called the Crescent City series, and I'm on the first book. It's like this thick, and it's small writing, and it's very dense on the page, so you can sit and read for 2 hours, and you look like this much of the book has passed. You know, it's a long old story, but it's good. It's quite compelling. There's some bits that I've glossed over. I'm sure if you have read any of her work, you might know which bits I'm talking about. It's a bit silly, but the story's good. The story is compelling, and I've been sucked right in. And she's given me like 2 other books in the series, and they are bigger. And I'm thinking, oh no, like I have to not read them till I've done some stuff. So hopefully I'll finish that book today or tomorrow, and then I'll get my bob pants made. But we'll see. Right. The other finished objects I've done, these aren't all of them. I've made a whole series of bento bags. I'm sorry, it's quite dark. This is like, it's midday on Monday the 16th of December. This is as much light as I can glean, that I can get through the windows. I'm sat right next to the window. Yeah, I've made a whole series of bento bags that will sort of act as present wrapping, but will be presents in themselves. And some of them have already got, like the ones I've made for the kids, have already got the kids' presents wrapped in them and tied up. So, but I've made 3 in different sizes, in different offcuts of cotton and linen from clothes that I've made for myself. So I think this was a jumpsuit, which I don't own anymore. I gave away because I wasn't wearing it. And the middle one was a pair of pyjama bottoms that I made, and the top one was a zero-waist slip top that I made from Bergie to Helmerson's book, which I wore a lot more than I thought I was going to. When I first made it, I wasn't that keen on it, but once it had been washed a few times and the linen softened up, I actually really like it, and I wear it loads. So there's the 3 of them. And so my mum's presents are going to go in there and be wrapped up. And one of them is this. It was a pot that I made at this last round of pottery, of the wheel thrown pottery. It's kind of raw at the bottom, and it's been glazed, and I poured beeswax in it to make her a candle. Not in the centre, it would seem. But anyway, I tried my best. She won't mind. I'd made her a little pot, like a little vase last time, and I'd glazed it in the same glaze. Or was it a bowl? A little bowl, I think, I'd made for her. And it was in the same glaze. And she just happened to have a little vase that that she'd bought from somewhere, but they'd obviously used the same glaze. It was an exact match. And so I thought I'd make her a little candle to go with it. So I bought her a few other bits, pieces. But it's nice to make her something. So they're other finished objects. And that will be fair. And that's it. That's all I've done, really. I have nearly finished this, which, if you have been here right from the very start, I showed this quilt. This is a quilt that I'd made the quilt top of 18 months ago, ages and ages and ages ago. And I showed it in the first podcast, which I think was last March, saying, oh, I'm going to finish it this spring. And I didn't. But I am doing it now. I made all the stripy binding, meters of stripy binding. And I've machine sewed it to the front. And then I just need to go round and hand sew it down at the back to get a nice neat finish. And although it really hurts my fingers, particularly because I'm not great at wearing a thimble, I quite struggle with it. I am wearing one to do this. I'm trying to, because it's got lots of seams. Even though I ironed them open, it's got lots of seams all the way down the stripy binding, and actually pushing the needle through does hurt. And some of this is quite sturdy linen. Some of it's really soft cotton, but some of it's sturdy linen. It's a whole mix of materials. the whole quilt has been made from like scraps and leftovers. So even though it kind of hurts to sew the binding down by hand, it is probably my favourite job of the whole quilt making process. Partly because it's the bit where, you know, you go from it looking like that, scruffy, and all of a sudden it looks, you know, finished and smart and nice, and it sounds stupid. It goes from being a work in progress to being a finished thing, but it really does, like, I don't know. If you've done it before, you'll know what I mean. It's just a really lovely process to watch it go from, you know, that thing that's being made to a thing that has been, that is. And also you get the quilt on your lap and you're all cozy and you're just moving along. It's quite quiet. It's one of those things that's kind of mindless and mindful at the same time. You can sit and do it whilst watching telly or chatting or just not thinking about it, but you can also sit in the peace and the quiet and just do it while your mind thinks, flows, does, you know, goes where it will. So it's yeah, it's a really lovely thing to do. I've done half of it, so I've got the other half to do. But again, I'll get that done this week, I think. So I'm quite pleased with that. The other thing that I've worked on, I think I started this maybe a week ago, like maybe the beginning of last week or the end of the week before, is another tiny little jumper. Last year I made 17 of these little jumper, 18 because I gave one to somebody outside of the family, but we had 11 people come and have Christmas with us, and then the 6 in my family, so that's 17 altogether. And I made everybody a little jumper, and I embroidered their initial on the front, and that cast on end was tied as a little loop, and I put it inside a cracker, so everybody got a cracker with their own little jumper in. It took forever, but I did it, and it was really sweet. And my auntie was there with her husband and her 2 sons, grown-up sons, and they all got a jumper each. And my auntie rather wisely said, "I'll keep your jumpers, boys. I'll keep them all together." And she sent me a message showing me them on. She's put them up on a little tree with lights and just the jumpers on. But a while ago, I saw her and my cousin in autumn, and he was saying that his girlfriend is spending Christmas with his mum and dad this year, which I think is quite a big deal. He's 27, so I think it's quite a big deal. I think it might be the first time he's had a partner come home and spend Christmas with his family. And so I was thinking it would be quite nice if I made her a little jumper with her initial on. So I started it, and having checked with my auntie that everything was still a-okay, and it is. And then my auntie sent me this photograph of the tree with all the jumpers up, and it looked really sweet. And then she was like, is there any way, do you think you would mind? You know, it's okay if not, but is there any way you could possibly make one for my cousin's partner? And I had such pleasure, like, not in a smug way, just in like a really genuinely like happy way. I could say, I'm already on it, I'm already doing it, like we're on the same wavelength, I'm there with you. It would be a nice thing to do. So it's done. I've washed and blocked it. I need to sew in the ends, and I need to embroider the initial on the front. So that I'm going to do today because I want to get it in the post tomorrow. I think the last guaranteed post day is the 18th, is it? So I want to make sure that is done. As I said, it's 16th today. I used this last year. I'm glad I could remember to embroider the letters on. It is hand painted yarn by a company called 5 Moons. I think if you watched a previous one where I showed the hat that I knitted for my son that was orange and blue, the orange was also a 5 Moon yarn, and their base is their Lunar Sport. And the orange one was called Gingerbread, I think. And this one, this red, is called Vampire's Tipple, and I've got the rest of it here actually, and it's a bit more like a bit more tonal than is showing up. Again, I'm sorry, it's very dark. It's quite a nice, you can see maybe here, it's a really nice dark winey red, blood red I guess, given the name. And I'd wound that off to do the embroidery, but even before I did all the others, it was maybe at most 10 grams. So that leaves me with like roughly 90 grams of yarn. I bought this yonks and yonks ago. It's a superwash. I think it's a superwash merino. That's what it feels like. And again, that's not something that I have a lot of in my stash. I do prefer like a woolly wool, but I have got it. And I think with this that's left over, I might knit myself a little scout scarf. I have this one. It's just one of those little scarves, you know, that everybody loves. The pattern was free. It's a Misha and Puff Studio pattern, and it was free for a time, and then they changed it so you could only get the pattern if you bought the yarn, which is fine if you live in America when they sell the yarn, but like to buy one skein of yarn to make a scarf and then pay the postage, it was like, I don't know, it was going to be like $90 or something. It was like, what? It was so silly when I looked at it. I was just like, there's no way I'm doing that. But the lovely, lovely Jessica from Sugar House Workshop, and also Addie Best, who is a printmaker on Instagram, both had made the scarf and had the pattern when it was free. And when I'd had a little moan about it, the fact that it had changed, both of them said, I'll send it to you, and did, because they said it was free. I don't feel bad in sending it to you, particularly because, you know, being able to buy the yarn is out of like a reasonable possibility for me. So they sent it to me, and I knitted it up in this, which is a charity shop yarn, I think, or yeah, I think a charity shop yarn, and I think it's like a wool and acrylic blend, I think, or it might be some sort of superwash wool, but I really love the colour and I wear it loads. Sadly, last month my mum and my daughter and I went out. We went to see Matthew Bourne's Swan Lake, which was brilliant. My mum's seen it before, but I never had, and we all went, and it was great, but we came back quite late, and it was raining and miserable, so I was driving and we jumped out the car and like ran into the house. And the next morning when one of my boys went to let the chickens out, he came in with it, and I'd obviously dropped it, and it'd been outside all night in the absolute pouring rain. So it was soaked, and it was just like full of silt. We were on a hill, so the water was kind of running through it and depositing silt and stones and stuff in it. But he brought it in like this. Ooh, it's all wet, and I could just see it stretching. And I was like, don't hold it like that. You must support its weight. And it's just stretched. Like, I washed it and dried it, and I can still wear it, and I do still wear it loads. But it's just that tiny bit too long now. Like, it doesn't fit quite like it did. And I've always meant to make another one because I do wear it so much, and so I think that will be a good use for this. I'm quite keen in this coming year. I'm sure lots of people are thinking about their winter plans and their 2025 goals. I am quite keen to use up stash. Now, I know I've said that before, and I'm sure every knitter or every sewer ever has said that they're gonna use stash yarn. I am going to make a really concerted effort. I've got too much stuff, and I don't want to feel guilty about it. Like, there are worse things that you could buy or you could spend money on, but I don't want it to go to. I don't want its potential to go to waste. I don't want it to be used, and I don't want to be blind to how, you know, fortunate I am to have the money to buy yarn and fabric and to be able to have the time to use it. So I do really want to try and work through that and this will be a start, I think. Another start, sort of start, because I did buy some yarn. I'm gonna admit to that. I bought it a few months ago. I want to make the Easy V sweater by Caitlin Hunter or Borland Knitworks. I hope this is not too rambly. Like, I feel like I'm rambling a bit. I hope, you know, if you're still with me, thank you. I'm really pleased. Anyway, I want to make this sweater. I'll put a picture up, by Caitlin Hunter. It's called the Easy V, and it is a V-neck sweater with some colour work. It will be my first colour work in the round garment. I did my heirloom quilt cardigan. That was my first ever colour work, but you knit those squares, the star squares, flat, and then I've done those front side flip beanies, which was my first colour work in the round. But it was small, and there was no chart or anything. It was knit 4 in one colour, knit 4 in another colour, knit 4 in one colour, and then swap. So it wasn't, you know, it wasn't complicated. I really struggle with charts. I find those sorts of that sort of visual information really difficult to deal with, like bus timetables, anything like that. I find it really hard, but I really want to do some colour work knitting. So this is quite a simple pattern, and the repeat is like, I don't know, 5-6 stitches. It gets a bit longer, obviously, as you increase across the yoke, but you know, the chart is a really slim chart, and you just repeat it over and over again. So I'm hoping that'll be fine. And actually, I did my first swatch, and you can see I managed it. It looks funny at the bottom, but that's just because that's where I stopped. I'd done enough to be able to do my measurements, I think. So this is being knitted up in a mix of new yarn, like recently bought yarn, and some old yarn. The reason I bought new yarn is because Caitlin Hunter's version is knit in the colour changing yarn at the top is all spin cycle, and it's really lovely, and I really like the kind of mottled effect that you get, and the way it kind of breaks up the colour work. Like, the colour work's not really stark, it looks more like not like a fade, but I really like the gentle effect. And when I went on Ravelry and looked at other patterns, the ones that had just used solid colours, I did not like at all. It was like a completely different jumper. All of the ones, and this is not like, I'm not being rude to the people that knitted those, and as long as they're happy with them, that's, you know, that's all that matters. But for me personally, there was just no way. I hated the look of it in the solid colours, like enough to make me think, oh god, maybe I shouldn't knit this, like maybe I don't like it. But every time I went back and looked at hers, I just loved it. So my first thought, obviously, was, could I knit it in the yarn that she used, in the specified yarns? So, you know, I looked it up, I looked up other colourways, and in fact I found one company in the UK that sold a kit, and I thought, okay, brilliant, and that's what I'm going to do. And then I looked, and the kit was £235 for the yarn. You still had to buy the pattern, and it was like, wow, okay. And I'm not saying, you know, I'm not saying anything about how much yarn is or how much it should be, or, you know, I'm just, that's what it is, and that's what it is. But it is not what I was willing to pay. And not necessarily because I couldn't find £235. You know, if I really wanted something, I could find that money, and I could save it up, and I could buy it. But I don't think I would be justified in spending that much money on one sweater, and I think also I would then really panic about wearing the sweater. So again, I'm not knocking anybody that has bought the specified yarn and knitted up that jumper, and maybe if they did it bit by bit, you know, if they had some yarn in stash and then they bought just on skein, or they did this, then it doesn't add up in the same way. But to just hand over that much money in one go, like I just couldn't justify it. It just seemed silly. But I really wanted, it confirmed that I really wanted some sort of variegated or colour changing yarn in the colourwork sections. And also the yarn that she used for the solids was a sort of tonal. It was a hand-dyed yarn, and I liked that variation. So that's what I had in my brain, and I looked at loads of different ones. Again, projects on Ravelry. Somebody had used, they call Zao balls, like the magic colour changing balls. Is that? And but I think they were superwash. There was a reason that I didn't want to buy them. I think it was that they were superwash. And that's just something that I mostly choose not to buy. So it put me off. Anyway, eventually, this is a very long ramble, I stumbled across, I was looking at Norro yarn, and I've used Norro yarn before. I've used the Madara to make a cardigan, and I've used a different one to make some socks, sorry. But they do have, they're sort of, some of them are sort of stripy and some of them are sort of, yeah, like a slow colour changing. And but they're also kind of flecked and tweedy and or like bits of it of barber poles. They're really interesting, quite unique yarns. So I bought some, and actually I still spent about £70 on the yarn for the colourwork, which is still a lot. So I'm just being honest about it. It's not like, oh, you know, I managed to do it for a £5. It was still quite expensive. I did get the yarn on sale as well. But this is what I bought, and you're going to tell me off because I can't remember the name of the base. But this one, I've not got the label or anything. I realised when I started knitting the swatch yesterday, I chucked the tags onto the fire and then went, oh, why did you do that? Because it had all the information on. But if you go on a website, you'll be able to find them. So there's this one. You can see it's like dark reds and bits of orange and bits of purple and blue, bits of brown. So that I'm going to use to replace the darkest of the colours that Caitlin Hunter used. And then this one, which is mostly grey, it's got a bit of pinky red in. Got, well, mostly grey, mostly brown, sorry, with bits of pink in, bits of grey in, bits of blue in, so that they sort of go together. That's my dark one, that's my mid-tone one. And then the last one is this, and I do know what this is. This is Norro Silk Garden, so it's a different base from those two. And when you look at it, if I can find the end, well, there you go. It looks, I don't know if you can see that, it looks a lot thinner. But the thing is about Norro yarn is that it's not consistently spun. So you get really thin bits and you get really thick bits, and it just all kind of merges into one and makes a really nice fabric, so it doesn't really matter. So they're my three contrasting colours. I knitted up a swatch. So here you see that darker one, you see this one, and you can already see the colour change happening in there. This one is just, obviously it's just like half the pattern repeat, but you can see the colour change in there, and when you go around a whole yoke, you know, that will be more obvious. And then this is, even though this looked like much more of a solid colour, it's got those flecks in. And then I just changed back to the darker one here because I wanted to hold it up against this, which I think is what I will use for the main fabric, so for the ribbon and for the body and the sleeves, although I think the colourwork is repeated on the cuff. And this is stash yarn. So this came from these two. These are Woolly Knit British wool cones, 500 gram cones, smell really woolly. This one, I think it's just called Maroon, something like this. And this one's called Autumn Fire. And I don't know if you can see, it's kind of pinky with sort of reddy flecks and like really pale blue, almost grey. And so I thought that they would go really well. And I've got loads. I'll have some of the big Norro balls. I'll have some of those left over as well, I think, looking at the yardage. I didn't need as much, but one of those balls cost the same as one skein of the spin cycle. And because I want to do a size 3, because I think the bigger size, like I said before, I'll go into that in a minute, but because I needed 2 of each of those spin cycle yarns, so I'd have to spend double on like less wool. It just seemed crackers, and I'm really pleased with how this turned out. This is 2 strands of the paler pink and 1 strand of the darker pink, and I did a different swatch with both the ribbon and the stockinette, and that was just 1 strand of each. So I blocked them and they're dry. I left them on the mantelpiece overnight and they're dry, but I haven't counted yet because I need to snip the backs, and then I will count and see if I'm anywhere near gauge. I'm really hoping. I kind of should be. I remember spending ages like looking at meterage and stuff like that. So I'm really hoping, and I think that'll be really nice. Do you know, I was wearing these trousers when I was doing it, and I had my red Wilder jumper on, and I was holding all the yarn, and my daughter came in. She was like, "Oh, you're almost camouflaged amongst all that wool, Mum." It's like, do you only knit in the same colours? Well, you know, I have a palette, but I think they're going to look really nice together. I'm really excited about doing it, actually. So as I said, I'm going to do a size 3. Now, when I looked again, I fell in between the 2. If I knit the size 2, I would have less positive ease than recommended. If I knit the size 3, I would have more positive ease than recommended. But again, looking at the projects on Ravelry, that's why I know Ravelry has its issues and its detractors, but one of the main boons of it is that so many people post to it and show pictures of of a project you're thinking of knitting, so you can go and look at it on different body shapes and sizes, in different colours, in different yarns. I think it really helps you. It's really helped me in this, you know, telling me that you definitely don't like it in the solid colours, and it also told me I really didn't like it when people size down. Like the way Caitlin Hunter wears it is quite big and it's baggy, and you could see that it would almost slip off that shoulder, and she's got the cuffs all pulled up, and it just looks like really cosy and snuggly, and yet still really beautiful. Like it doesn't look like she's wearing like a dad's jumper, like a little girl in a dad's jumper. She doesn't look like that. I still think she looks really attractive in it, and her measurements, like I'd have a tiny bit more ease, so I think her chest measurement was 36, and I'm assuming that's her in the picture. It is her in the picture, and mine's 35. So I decided I was just going to go for it. I'm going to do the bigger size. It's meant to be an oversized jumper, and I'm just gonna go for it. I think if I knitted it in the small jumper, I think it would look a bit, maybe like excuse me, in a smaller size, that V might just end up looking a bit school jumpery, and I don't want that. So I'm going for the bigger size. Okay. I think that's it. You know, I was going to talk a little bit about my plans for next year. I've sort of said about using up some of my resources. I mean, both fabric and yarn. I'm wondering whether I want to kind of not make it formal, because I'm saying it to myself and to you guys, like, you know, but, you know, really try and put some sort of buying ban. I'm one of those people, though, as soon as you tell me not to do something, that's all I want to do. Bloody minded, my mother would call me. So I'm not going to talk about that, partly because I haven't figured it out, but partly because I feel like I've been rambling for 50 minutes now, and I think that's probably long enough. But yeah, I've got lots of sort of plans formulating for what I want to do next year, and sort of the direction I want to go, and some sort of slight changes that I want to make. So maybe that will be the focus of a video in the new year. Anyway, I'm going to go, so I'm going to say happy Christmas if you celebrate Christmas, or, you know, happy whatever you celebrate at this time of year. Maybe just happy and, you know, peaceful end for 2004 and a hopeful start to 2005. Hope sometimes feels a bit tricky at the minute, but let's hope. And yeah, take care, and I'll see you soon. Bye.